So I think that people are probably guilty of overcomplicating IR35, right? And it's purposely, the government make it purposely complex because if it was easy, people would just find ways around it. And so you have that problem. You then have the issue of there's lots of myths around it. So one of the interesting ones, and you might want to fact check this before you publish this statement, but um, there is an assumption by managers and HR that co-employment risks or co-employment and or IR35, which is essentially whether somebody is a legitimate contractor or not. I mean, that's the definition of it, right? So people get confused by the inside out, outside damage, and clearly people listening to this podcast are also experts. But people in businesses have got day jobs and they're not experts on it, so they get confused and they hear it referred to as IR35, and it might not be clear to them. But it's essentially the government's way of checking whether somebody is legitimately self-employed, and there are lots of different tests for that, but the one that's mostly misunderstood is one about contract duration. So managers always say, yeah, but if they've worked 2 years, they automatically get employed status. Myth. You know, if they get confused with the 2-year employment legislation, which is around bringing about unfair dismissal. So that, I think that gets muddied with IR35. Essentially, the acid tests are control and direction. I mean, this is, when you unpick the CEST tool, and I was lucky enough when I was at Disney, there was a consultancy that we were working with, and they worked very closely with the revenue. And because we were media, and media is a particularly sticky area because you've got another whole set of rules for production people, we had direct access to HMRC. And in fairness to HMRC, they really worked with us to consult with us on this. And they gave us a lot of insight into the tool. And the tool is weighted. And essentially, the control and direction is the largest component of that. So lots of smaller measures, such as the provision of equipment and the location of work. If you think about how we work now, that's already out of date, right? So people generally work flexibly. Generally, white collar workers generally work flexibly, and therefore that's not really a test anymore. Provision of equipment is challenging because organizations have to issue their own kit for IT security purposes. So, you can't just work from your own laptop and view confidential. That's just not how it works. So it's risk and then supervision and control. And the risk element is around whether there's a guarantee of ongoing work. And that's often the bit that companies fail to account for. And if you have ongoing work, it means there's no financial risk for the contractor. And it means that that's probably not a genuine self-employed arrangement.